All right, what is the next system you're showing us with Restaurant Systems Pro?
Yeah, so we're going to look at purchasing systems and items which lead into your inventory, but it also gives us some insight on where to concentrate your efforts in your restaurant. And so I want to do a quick show of how that happens. I'm in a real restaurant in here right now. This is Peter Sclafani's restaurant. He's been on an interview with you probably last August or so. I'm not sure.
No, I think it was almost 2 years ago.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah,
oh
he
my
was
gosh!
one of my first interviews. It was when we were in Chicago when Chris Schoenberger, say his name again? Schoenberger was hosting. I think that was.
Oh, okay.
That was some time ago in the mansion.
Oh, that's right. You interviewed him in the mansion there. That's right. Yeah.
Sorry.
Nice.
The
Well, the memories.
We don't care about that.
No.
Get into the software.
So we have this part here that's daily paperwork. And so, Eric, I'm going to ask you, how often do you think daily paperwork should be done?
Daily?
Exactly. And our restaurateurs sometimes have a hard time with it. But invoice upload here is showing where Peter Sclafani's restaurant is on his processing. And you can see here, there on these not processed lists, there's no invoices showed up. So he's completely up to date on his invoices, and there's none to be processed right now. So that could be one of two things. Either he has been not doing their job and uploading invoices, which is as simple as opening the app, taking a picture, and it scans it in. But here it's going to show me the processed invoices. So any restaurateur can see like what's been processed. You can see here it's today the 7th, right? So you can see up till yesterday that all of these invoices have been processed in the system. So when I look at like, here's a Benny Keith invoice. If I click on it, you're going to see the image of that Benny Keith invoice, and there it is too. I can make it bigger and look at it too, but that's showing me the Benny Keith invoice in there. It shows the people on our team that have processed it, but it's showing all those vendors in there too. Now, when I want to see that processed invoice, it is it's going to show me in my invoice log. Okay. And so when I look at my invoice log, I can see these are those invoices that have been processed. You can see that Benny Keith actually sent them 3 different invoices. This one right here is a bigger one. It's $6,315. That's right there. If I click on this invoice here, double click it, it'll show me the accounting code of that invoice that's being processed. But not only is it showing that's loading up the picture of it, not only is it showing me the accounting code, but also there's this blue button right here that's showing me how all of these products came into the system. And anytime you can see here, this is the Restaurant Systems Pro purchase unit and the invoice purchase unit. So if it changes, it'll update the system and flag their email for that day, but also show you on the dashboard any price changes by percentage and rank them. So any significant price changes will show up. So all of those products are coming in here. You can see this was a big invoice, and there was a lot of things, and we make sure that it's all correct and it's in the system. And now I have a record of every purchase I've made for that week.
And I love that you can tie the person, so whoever's doing the processing. I think that was on the previous.
It was on the previous page, yeah.
So like, there's accountability too. So if something goes wrong, or if it was not entered right, like you could follow up, and if there's a pattern of somebody who's consistently not. There's accountability based, which I love.
Exactly. And so we want that, and we're very transparent on it. So Shelby is actually on our team or their team. Shelby is on their team. So Shelby on their team and actually process the invoice. Sometimes it's people on my team, and then we can go from there too. I have people that are remote too, so I do know who my employees are. But here we have, we go through them. We have these invoices here. Okay, so when they get processed, they're in the system and they get processed. But a really important thing here is, you're talking about the 80-20 rule, where that applies to the restaurant business as well. And what you'll find on here is that 20% of your purchases are going to account for at least 50% of the money you spent, total revenue, total cost.
Income.
Yeah. So
say that again.
So 20, it's usually like not even 20% actually. The top 10 or 20 items will account for half of your spending in a restaurant. And it ranges on the restaurant, but 10 to 20 items will show that. We could count it here. I could do a whole export on here too. But what I'm going to do is I scroll across here and I go to the end here. Oops, sorry. Wow. Here is the total right here. So if I click on that, it'll change them and rank them. So from least to most. So when I'm looking here, this is just for the month of May. I could actually change this date range and go back to the beginning of April here. Let me load on that. So when I do that, it's a lot of data with all the purchases, and it's starting to organize it, right? So now I'm going to go and look at let me scroll across. That's now, 36 days worth of purchasing. I'm going to look at what they spent the most amount of money on. I don't know how hard. And when I look at that, so see, this one is this is a product that came into their system, but they transferred it from another one of their restaurants.
Got it.
So that's not the vendor, but they borrowed that, and they can actually say this white chocolate brownie that was sent over was transferred, and that one restaurant that it left got the credit, and then the other restaurant got the expense for that white chocolate brownie. And it's telling me that this product came from transferring it from another restaurant in there too. So that wasn't there before. So now the number one thing they spent money on in the last 36 days was this 1620 shrimp, right? And so if I'm going to concentrate my efforts, it's going to be on that too. So you can get these from your vendors, but the problem is you can only get it from some vendors, like probably this New Orleans Fish House couldn't give them this report. But Inland Seafood probably couldn't give them the report either, but Cisco and Benny Keith could. So you have things here. There's a Capital City Produce. These smaller vendors can't provide you that reports. Your bigger vendors could give you a breakdown. A lot of times they don't want to, though. They think it's time to shop you, and they kind of fight back and go, oh, I don't know how to do that, or I don't know how to run that report. Descending dollar report? I've never heard of that. And it's like, really, in this day and age, you've heard of it. You just don't really want to provide it because it's what people use to shop vendors. So
got it.
Yep. This is another one like this is Cisco. This is saying that it was transferred from the other store, this Cisco one too, those pork rinds there. So now they know where to concentrate their efforts, and that now I'm going to go make sure all my recipes are done for these top 10, at least in the beginning of the process. You want to do them all. It's very important. But you know where to concentrate.
So you're saying 20% of those items are the ones you really want to pay attention to, because if they shift a little bit in price, then they have the biggest impact on your cost of goods.
Yeah, and it's not even so much about the price; it's about how well you use them.
Okay.
I have a client that
no waste.
Yes, in fact, what you just spoke on is kind of a even restaurateurs they believe that their cost savings are going to come from finding a better price on things, and price actually is one of the way down the list on the way you can save on food costs.
It's having systems, processes, and training in place, so you're not making something 3 or 4 times, and you're not over purchasing, so you're throwing things away.
I have a client that's the best example of this. And years ago, what they did is they had a giant room. It's probably half not everybody can see this room, but it's a pretty big room. I'd say 40 by 20 would be the size of the walk-in, probably halfway down the middle. And in the middle of this big giant room, they had pallets of crab that they would buy frozen at the lowest price possible. And one of the things we did is we went through this principle, and this is where kind of a Mike Michalowicz Profit First thing taught me this. I thought about it before, but he actually conceptualized it, where you talk about if you have Parkinson's principle says that the increase of a supply will increase the demand proportionally, right? So as the supply of something increases, so will the demand. That's Parkinson's principle. And that, if you apply that to like an example, a tube of toothpaste, you use more toothpaste when you have a full tube of toothpaste than you do when you have an almost empty tube of toothpaste.
You take a longer shower when there is plenty of water in the earth, and not when there is a water shortage.
Yep, exactly. So, and that's where when Mike Michalowicz was talking about, he's like, hey, that's why you break up your bank accounts into smaller buckets so that you don't see this like big pile of money and then want to use it up, right? So you have it. Well, when it comes to this, same thing goes with your inventory. If I have a massive amount of stuff on my shelf, I'm going to overuse it. And with the example of this crab, what we found was, yes, they were getting a good price on it, but now the crab is not precious. It gets overportioned. A case could get stolen and nobody would notice. Right. And we switched them to fresh crab at more dollars per pound, but a better product, and they lowered their food cost by like 9 points, even though we're paying more for crab. But we were using the right amount.
Got it.
Yeah. And so it really is important,
Awesome.
The 9 points wasn't all from the crab. There's a whole bunch of other things that was into it, but it was a big part of it too.
Got it.
and not having the massive amount was there too. Parkinson's principle was in play. All right, so that is a really important report that can let us know where we're at. Now, if we here, the next thing is we go to inventory. Now we got to count all this stuff, right? This is a purchase report. We got to count the stuff we bought. So if I go to my inventory here, you talked about accountability. Now they are a, if I go back, they are a Wednesday to, what is that? There, let me go back to April 1st. So here, you can see here that they have a inventory 2 weeks apart here, right? So they have to get their May inventory in here, but you can see here, see how there's different names attached to the inventory? Well, and you can even see Gino was coaching them. So even my team's name would be attached to an inventory, right? So if I was to manipulate inventory, I could make my cost of goods sold seem better, right? And so there's accountability and timestamps as to everybody who edited inventory and had anything to do with it. So there's accountability to the numbers that are in the system.
Got it. So as you're going, so if I were to go into this, if I would click right here, that would bring me into the...
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Now you can see walk-in is their first location. So click the little arrow next to the walk-in, then we'll expand that out. And then over on the right, you're going to go to the count. So let's edit this count. We're going to change it from, this is basil, and you can see it's in a group. So whichever is the latest basil they bought will be the one that shows up there. But change the count from 1 to 2. Just go ahead and go to count, change it to 2. There you go. Now what we're going to do is
accidentally click 3.
It's okay.
That matters.
It does matter because we got to change it back. That was 1. I'm going to change that back to what it was there. I'm going to collapse the section. And whenever I do that, it will ask me if I want to save my data. All right. So I'm going to save that data. There was 1 basil in there. And I save it, right? And so what that means is I've edited that inventory, right? So when I go back to the inventory, and we're going to go back to last month. I think you made it
back to 1, though.
It's okay. The second one, not the first one.
Okay.
So when I go back here, and I go back to April, see my name?
Nah.
Today's date. It's a timestamp exactly when I touch that. So if Peter calls me up and say, "Fred, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I was just teaching Eric some stuff in there." Right. So now my name's attached to it. I'm logged in as me. My name's attached. I edited that, and I'll blame you.
There's no shady shit to be done.
Exactly. Yeah. You cannot go in there and so that's where, as long as managers aren't sharing logins, you're all good to go. And we teach not to do that. Okay, so I'm going in this restaurant. Now I can move this stuff around without messing it up, right? So I'm going here. One of the things that happens is restaurants are doing inventory and spreadsheets and different things like that. And we teach shelf to sheet. I actually first learned about shelf to sheet by reading Anthony Bourdain's book, Kitchen Confidential, way back. He talked about being an up-and-coming chef and going like, hey, this is dumb. Why don't we count this the way it sits on the shelf? And he organized his spreadsheets that way. And that was years ago, early in my career, where I'm going like, hey, I'm going to do that too. And I actually did that back in the day in the restaurants I was working and organize all their spreadsheets. But it was a complete pain to take a spreadsheet and organize it, shelf to sheet. It's really, really hard too. So now here you can see, as we go through this, you can see there's a barbecue sauce. That's a batch recipe that's in my thing. I'm counting it by the quart because it's in those containers with quarts. That's in there. I have my, dressing and coleslaw. I can drag this to be wherever I want it. So now I can easily organize my inventory, right? But I also have a lot of things here. So let's say I'm going down here and I have a lot of things in here, and this grapefruit, let's say I want it to be the very first thing I see. Well, I can just type the number 1 index number, that yellow button showed up there, and I can reorganize. That grapefruit that I did. So now my grapefruit is right there.
So if you're walking into a giant walk-in and you go from left straight back to the wall, then you're on the back wall, and then you're on the right wall.
Yep.
You can just basically organize it in the way that you come across that stuff. So you're just going in order.
And you can set it up the way that you see it too. So there's certain things like where if we can minimize having to put things on a scale, like if I know like how much a 6-pan of pulled pork costs, I can create an inventory item that's a 6-pan of pulled pork and just count how many 6 pans of pulled pork I have and do inventory faster like that as well. I'll also use that purchase report to make sure I'm the most accurate with my top 20 items on there.
What about like typically when you're coaching people to do inventory, is it a 2-person? There's 1 person counting, 1 person recording, right?
Yep, 1 person recording. It's even easier though because I'm showing you in the browser right here, but it's actually right in the app. You can do it right on your phone and just hit enter next, enter next, enter next. and it's all organized and comes up and pops up on your screen in the exact order that you have it here in the browser. So it makes it really easy. And then you can see here we actually have a way to turn connection mode off. So if I wanted to take my laptop into the walk-in, I don't need to be worried about connecting to the internet. It'll just store all the information in the browser. The apps will automatically do that. You don't have to do anything different to have it happen in your app, and you can just count. And then when you get back to the internet, it'll push it to the servers.
Nice.
There. So that's all in there for you. So to be able to do that in those different ways is really helpful and important. There's different things in here where you have calculators built into it, so you don't have to get your calculator out to add things up, and we want to make it fast too.
Love it.
The other thing it will do that I don't really know if we're gonna have time to show you that today, but we have order guides that it creates. And it'll take those order guides, sort it out by vendor, and give you an order guide to do your ordering exactly the way you set up your inventory. So it takes the information you've done from organizing your products in your inventory, sorts out by vendor, and you can just order shelf to sheet as well.
Wow.
Too. So now you're doing your orders in there, and it's just making you more efficient too.
So this is what I think they mean by learning how to do more with less.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's technology that can streamline process and make it so you only have to do it one time.
Right? Yeah.
And I don't have to say any more than that.
Well, doesn't it make it, like, if you think about it, now that it's set up like that, it's much easier to delegate to a less skilled employee as well, right? Somebody that maybe isn't as experienced as you in the restaurant industry. So many restaurateurs wear a badge of courage that they're the one that knows how to do everything, and they end up getting stuck doing everything. And there's people that work 80 hours in the restaurant business, but not every employee works 80 hours in the restaurant business, right?
I mean, we talk about the importance of systems. And you can go out and build your own systems on print out pieces of paper and stuff like that, and they could be great systems.
Yep.
But are they you will never recreate likely something as a restaurateur better than what Fred Langley has created in Restaurant Assistance Pro. So instead of going out as a restaurateur and trying to build your own system from scratch, take an existing system and adopt it and go way further.
The other thing too is, like, you're busy restaurateur. We talked about, we have training for your managers that you don't have to train them. We train them on all this for you,
right?
Like, ongoing with it. It's not like an extra cost or anything. It's something that we're providing each and every single day, and you can put them into these trainings and say, hey, go learn to do inventory. I don't have time to teach you, but we'll teach you. You know, So. So those are some good things. There's, it does more stuff too, but that's a good overview of it, in here.
What's the next system you're showing us?
So as we go through here, we're taking inventory. Knowing our true usage of product is pretty important, right? Okay. So getting into usage of product by product is really important. So